think that it's possible that movement is one way of communication used by living organisms? تفتكروا الحركة ممكن تكون طريقة من طرق التواصل؟ I am Mrs. دعاء and we will start our fourth learn lesson of communication and information transfer concept. To learn more about new ways of communication used by living organisms, get your student book, tools, and be ready to start our lesson. Do you remember the fireflies that use flashing light patterns for communication, and how whales use different pitches of sounds in mating and feeding seasons? Today, we will explore new ways of communication and information transfer of living organisms. And the first way is used by the honeybees. Let's start activity 8, analyze like a scientist. In Analyze Like a Scientist, we will talk about animals' communication with movement. We will read a text about using the movement pattern by honeybees to transfer information to other bees. Remember to highlight what information bees communicate using patterns of movement. What is the first thing do you think that the living organism need to survive? يا ترى الكائنات الحية بتحتاج إيه عشان تعيش؟ That's right, food and water. There is a kind of honeybee called scout. Scout tries to find food, which is the flower nectar. When it finds food, the scout returns to the hive to tell the bees where the food is. But how can the scout bee send this message? Let's know more. The scout that you see in the middle make a specific movement or pattern of movements that has a particular meaning. It moves in a figure-8 pattern horizontally while vibrating her wings. اللي انتوا شايفينها في النص دي النحلة الكشافة بتتحرك بطريقة منتظمة عشان توصل message. Like the figure you see here. If the hive is in this place, here is the hive, hive اللي هي خلية النحل، بيت النحل. And the food is here. The food is the flower nectar. The bee make a figure-8 movement to tell the other bees where the food is. الفيجر 8 هيحصل ازاي؟ Here is the hive, here is the food. The bee will move zigzag in front, بتعمل vibration, then turns right, then vibration again, then to the left. Do you realize that the bee always starts its movement or faces its body toward the flower's direction? The movement pattern is like a message that tells the other bees the direction and the distance to the resources like food and water. Especially if the distance is far, the bee in the hive read the code and then fly off to the specific location. Before we go further, تعالوا نفكر هنا. Here is the hive and here is the food. طيب, the food is in the right, so the bee is going to face the right side. Then starts its vibration, turn right, vibration, turns left. Can we compare the way of communication of human and bees? You can find this question on page 107. How does the way honeybee communicate compare to the way humans communicate? I'll give you some time to think, and then tell me your answers. Riham told me that we use specific movements to send messages to someone or tell them some information. For example, if we make a movement like this using our hand, this means no, or the same movement by shaking your head. Or making this movement, that means hi or how are you. And also, we have movements that are used in sign language, لغة الإشارة. All these movements transfer a meaningful messages, and bees also make movement patterns to transmit information about the direction to the source of food. زي النحل بنستخدم برضو الحركة في التواصل، زي ما بنعمل حركات زي الحركة دي أو الحركة دي، بمعنى لأ. البيز كمان بتستخدم الحركة عشان توصل معلومات. I'm sure you are now excited to know the meaning of each movement of the bee and how they transfer information to the other bees. Let's play a game together to understand how bees communicate. First thing, there will be a hidden flower here in this place. وش معنى اخترنا الفلاور؟ لأن هي دي الفود بتاع البلانت. Here we have a hidden flower. I'll use this bee to play the role of the scout that will make the movement pattern or dance, and you will play the role of the other bees in the hive. هنا أنا هبقى النحلة الكشافة وانتوا هتبقوا بقية النحل اللي موجود في الهايف. You will try to understand the code that I will make and try to know where the flower is and is it far or near. Before we start, let's remember the coding the honeybees use in page 107. Look at this page and I will explain each step to you here on the board. The first sentence is that the bee faces the direction of the flower. As you can see here, the flower is in front of the bee, so the bee faces the flower. يبقى the first thing is the bee faces the location of the flower. So if the flower is in front of the hive, the bee will be directed to this. But if the flower is opposite to the hive, in the south, يعني لو الفلاور دي كانت في south position, so the bee will be directed to this direction. The bee will flip itself to the south direction. The second sentence is that the bee does one round dance if the flower is very close. It vibrates her wings while moving. How this movement? Read with me. The bee waggle to the right and then to the left. البي هتعمل waggling to the right and to the left. كأنها بتعمل zigzag motion. If the bee make this dance one time, the other bees will know that the flower is near. But if it make it 3 times or more, so the flower is far. We understood the code with honeybees and the meaning of the movement. And for now, you will see an imitation of the scout's movement. And you have to try to discover if the flower is near or far. هنركز على حاجتين. أول حاجة direction of the bee عشان نعرف اتجاه الفلاور فين. تاني حاجة هنركز على عدد مرات الراوندز اللي هناخدها. لو عمل مرة واحدة يبقى the flower is close to us يعني قريبة. لو عملنا أكتر من مرة يبقى معناها إن الفلاور بعيدة. Let me try this code with you. Remember, I am the scout bee and you are the other bees in the hive. So here's my bee. First, we will move in this direction. This is the waggling. Then we will make a round to the right. Then another waggling. Then one round to the left. وعايزاكم تعدوا how many rounds we will take. Okay, this is waggling, then one right, another waggling, then one left. Again. Oh, maybe we are going far away. Another waggling to the left. Did you get the code and guess where the flower is? Is the flower on the right or the left? Yep, the bee goes to the right, so the flower is on the right. Next, to the board, for example, here يعني? No, it isn't near because I made movement 2 times. So I need to move a little and search on the right side, and I will take more than 1 step. In the right side, 1 step, 2, and search. I found the flower here. It was on the right side where the bee stands and far from the hive location because the bee does waggling dance twice. If you are in the class, the teacher can choose anyone to play the role the scout and hide a flower or even a picture of it anywhere in the class while you are all closing your eyes. After that, the scout makes a movement code like what we did together. But it will be sure that it faces the direction of the flower or when it starts its movement, your role is to discover where the resources or the flower is. تقدروا تلعبوا اللعبة دي مع بعض في الكلاس. You can hide a picture or flower or a flower. Then one of you will play the scout زيي and the others will be the bees in the hive. وهيبتدوا يخبوا الفلاور and he is going to make the code. You have to read the code. ركزوا الأول الدايركشن اللي بيبتدي بيه right to or the left وكمان ركزوا في عدد الواجلينج. Now I'll give you some time to read the question to make sure that you understand the movement pattern of bees. Pay attention that the first question depends on game we play together and what you will play in class together. The first question you should think about is, did the honeybee's message make it from the scout to the other bees correctly? If not, what went wrong? To make sure that the code is correct, you should be sure of two things. The one who plays the role of the scout sends the code correctly, and they do not be confused in any step. And make sure that you understand the way of decoding the code to understand the message. احنا متفقين من قبل كده من الحلقات اللي فاتت ان لازم لما نعمل كود السندر والريسيفر يبقوا فاهمين الكود، فلازم نتاكد ان السكاوت فاهم ازاي يعمل الكود وان الاذر بيز فاهمين ازاي يترجموا الكود ده. The second question is, what sense did you use to receive the code from the scout honeybee? Yes, it's very easy. You saw each step I made, so you use the sense of. That's right, this side. The most important question is, how are codes useful for bees who need to communicate to other bees in the hive? Can the bee flash light like fireflies or speak like us? No, it cannot. So this code is the main way to communicate, send and receive messages about where the food is, which help it to survive. البيز ما بتقدرش تتكلم ولا تعمل فلاش لايت زي الفاير فلايز، عشان كده هم بيستخدموا the ways of movement. As the bee meets their communication needs by using movement, humans always think of how they can create communication system to make their life easy to send and receive information. We will start discovering that in activity 9, Analyze Like a Scientist, which focuses on knowing the communication systems and how we can use them. هنبتدي نتكلم على أنظمة التواصل. Let's start together with our analysis of the text on page 109. Read the text well, get your pen and underline the parts of communication system. Of course, you observe the word system in the text. Can you guess its meaning? I think that system consists of many parts that work together to perform a job. But your friend Mariam has another definition for a system. She said that system is a group of parts that have a specific objective. Excellent, Mariam. That's right. What do you know about the communication systems? The communication systems are around us everywhere. Each time we use the television or radio, we use one of the communication systems. Each system consists of many parts, and each part has a performance or a job. If there is a problem in any of these parts, the whole system cannot work. أظن إن إحنا سمعنا كلمة system قبل كده. سمعناها لما اتكلمنا على living systems الأنظمة الحية، لما اتكلمنا عن nervous system و digestive system respiratory system. وقتها لاحظنا إن بيبقى عندنا many parts that work together. The same في communication systems like the TV or radio. برضو system it's made of many parts that work together to receive the video that you are going to watch أو to hear the song that you are going to hear. طيب لو أي part في السيستم ده حصل فيه مشكلة, the whole system will not work. Of course, all of you know the satellite dish on the top of buildings and houses. الساتلايت اللي هو receiver. If there is a problem in it, you cannot watch the different channels on the TV. What about the cell phone systems? Who underlined its parts? We read that there are 3 parts. the communication tower, software, satellites. communication tower اللي هي أجهزة الاستقبال. السوفت وير اللي بيبقى على الموبايل، والساتلايتس اللي بتنقل الإشارات. If we look at the communication towers, you will find that you cannot make a call if there isn't a communication tower because it's responsible for the network in the phone to call someone or receive a call. عارفين النتورك الشبكة اللي احنا بنقولها؟ The communication tower responsible for getting this signal to your mobile. Do you remember something about the system in concept 2? And its parts must work together so that your body can process information. Process information? Yes, right. That's the nervous system. If you have any questions about the parts of the systems you see around you, you can write them all to search for their answer, like the internet systems. The internet system, I have a question about it. What are the parts of the internet system? How does these parts work together to do its job? Before we move to the last communication system we will explore today in today's lesson, we will play a very quick writing game. You have 30 seconds to write examples about the animals communication that we studied before. فاكرين الانيمالز communication اللي اتكلمنا عنها، التواصل في الحيوانات؟ You have 30 seconds عشان تكتبوا لي some examples. Let's start. After you wrote down everything, I'll show you pictures and you will say how this living organism communicates. Do you remember this living organism? Yes, it's the Egyptian mongoose. Egyptian mongoose communicate through sound. What about this one? The humpback whale. It communicates through the sound. كان بيعمل musical notes جميلة جدا. What about the fireflies? Fireflies communicate using flashlights. What about the insects? Do you know how ants communicate? We will know that together in activity number 10, observe like a scientist. In Observe Like a Scientist, we are going to watch a video about ants colonies, مستعمرة النمل. Bring your notebook and pen. When you see the word communication that on screen, write down any information you hear about the way of communication of ants. Let me start the video. في الاكتيفيتي ده هنتفرج على التواصل في الانس. نركز كويس جدا على طرق التواصل.
Wow, these guys look busy. You don't often see an ant sitting still. Amazingly, there are over 10,000 ant species around the world. You've probably already come across some of them in all sorts of places outside, and maybe even in the house. Oh no, who dropped some bread on the floor? This boy has let an ant crawl on his arm. Be careful, some ants can bite. They live in large groups called colonies. The average ant colony consists of thousands of ants. Because ants live in such big groups, they need to be able to communicate with each other. It helps them work together in a cooperative way and divide up all the jobs that need to be done, such as building a nest, gathering food, or taking care of the eggs and babies. It's a busy life being an ant. Ants communicate in some of the ways humans do. Many ants have good eyesight and can see things. They also communicate by touching each other. They touch and feel things with their antennae. Antennae are often called feelers. But the most important way ants communicate is through smell. Ants' antennae do the job of our noses, and they have a very good sense of smell. They also have lots of different glands on their bodies for producing a variety of smells to signal different things. Their sense of smell helps them recognize members of their own colony and work out who's an outsider from another colony. Ants leave a scent trail that other ants can follow. They can produce smells to signal they've found food. Instead of shouting, "Come over here, this tastes good," they create a smell that says that. Smell signals also help them get a group together to carry a large find back to the nest. Good teamwork. Smell helps ants identify the role or job of other ants. One of the most important ways that ants use their powerful sense of smell is for defense. Watch out, spider attack! Smell signals are used to warn colony members of danger. This is clever. These ants are using their bodies as a bridge so others in the colony can cross from one plant to another. They've used smell to signal what's going on. Now it's your turn. Is talking the only way you communicate, or are there other ways?
I always watch a video to record many observations. That can help me. So during the video, I recorded the words. Let me write the words that I recorded for you. The first word that I recorded is sight. The second one, touch. The third is smell. The fourth word is antenna. And the last word is division of works. I observed that some kinds of ants have a good sight, like the human, to see easily. What about touch? Which word is related to it? That's right, antenna. This is the antenna of ants. Antenna اللي هي قرون الاستشعار. It's on the front of the head. بتبقى في بداية الراس. Antenna are the touch organs of insects that help them know things around them. الانسكتس بتعمل touching مش بالسكين زينا، بالانتنا. We also use the touch sense, but our organ responsible for it is the skin. What is the second sense related to antenna? Yep, the smell. The antenna of ants act like the human nose, as ants recognize different scents through it. Ants have glands يعني غدد, that help them in producing different smells. Each smell has a meaning or a specific message. For example, an ant can make a smell to tell the other ants that it finds food. And another smell that is a message that tells them to take care of enemies. لو خدتوا بالكم الانتنة بتلعب دورين، بتلعب دور في التاتشنج وتلعب دور كمان في السميلينج. It means ants depend on smell sense as the main mean of communication for food and warning about enemies. How can ants communicating regarding dividing the works? Dividing the works يعني تقسيم العمل. Let's read about this interesting story on page 110 and underline it. Do you remember the role of ants in the first lesson in math? And how can these large numbers divide themselves? اتكلمتوا عن الانتس في بداية السنة في دروس الماث، وعرفتوا إن بيبقى أعدادهم كبيرة جدا، أكيد بيقسموا نفسهم لوظائف مختلفة. Nurse ants, scout ants, scavenger ants that pick the food, and soldier ants or fighting ants. تعالوا نعرف دور كل واحدة فيهم. When the nurse ants notice the food is less, they produce a strong smell to send a message to the scout ants to tell them that the food is less. يبقى أول نوع النيرس ants بيبعتوا smelly message لمين؟ للسكاوت ants لما بيلاقوا الأكل قليل. When the scout ants smell the smell through the antenna، فاكرين هما ما عندهمش nose، عندهم antenna. They do their work of searching for food till they found it. يبقى السكاوت ants they search for food. So they will also produce a smell which will make the ants know where the food is. Will the scout ants collect food? No, it's not their work, and also the nurse ants. So this smell is directed to what? To the scavenger ants اللي هو تالت نوع. Scavenger ants will pick the food. What about protection? This is the role of soldier ants that produce a smell to alert the others if there is danger nearby. لو أخدتوا بالكم الأربع أنواع بيشتغلوا في تكامل. This is a communication system, and this communication system is very interesting. Let us think together about the similarities and differences between it and human communication system. For example, if we think about the use of the senses, we will find that ants use good sight like humans, smell and touch like us. Still, the difference is that the organ responsible for the sense, as we smell through the nose and touch through the skin, but the organs responsible for touch and smell regarding ants is the antenna. خدتوا بالكم ان السيميلاريتيز اللي هي اوجه التشابه ما بيننا ان احنا الاثنين بنعتمد على سنسز زي السايت والسمال والتاتش، لكن الفرق في الاورجن اللي هيعمل الوظيفه دي. الاورجنز عندنا هي النوز والسكين، لكن عند الانتس هي الانتنا. You can continue your discussion to think about the similarity and differences between the communication system of human and the communication system of animal that we explored. Send us your answer by scanning this QR code on the screen. Write your name and your school name. You can write elements of comparison, for example, the sense which is used for communication. Does the communication depend on light or sound or speaking? The meaning of the messages. Objective is finding food or warning about enemies. تقدروا هنا تعملوا تيبل وتكتبوا فيه اللي انتوا لاحظتوه كله وتقسموا. يا ترى هما بيعملوا الكوميونيكيشن دي ليه؟ بيستخدموا ايه اصلا عشان يعملوها؟ Now we reached the end of our interesting lesson about the different communication systems. Be ready to revise together the most important facts we learned. At the beginning of our lesson, we learned the communication system of bees. اتكلمنا عن النحل. That depend on specific movement pattern. نمط حركي واضح وثابت. This pattern is used to transfer information about the source of food. كانوا بيستخدموا النمط ده عشان يدوروا على الأكل. واتفقنا إن النمط النحل بنركز على حاجتين. بيبتدوا بأنهي direction في الأول وبيكرروا الحركة قد إيه. We saw how human creates and uses different communication systems and knew that any system consists of many parts that work together to perform a job. My dearest students, do not forget that the word system is one of the main vocabulary. Go back to the table we start with. فاكرين التيبل اللي عملناه في أول lesson خالص؟ I want you to put the definition in it, where in the third column. Do you remember the communication system of ants that help a large number of ants in colonies to divide their works, to find food and protect themselves? فاكرين الأربع أنواع بتوع الأنتس؟ إزاي النيرس أنتس بتكتشف إن الأكل نقص؟ تبعت مسج، هتبعت سمالي مسج لمين؟ للسكاوت أنتس. سكاوت أنتس هتدور على الأكل. تبعت مسج لمين؟ للسكافنجر أنتس اللي هيروحوا يجيبوا الأكل في في خلال كل ده ما بيحصل عندك السوليجر ants بيدافعوا وبيحافظوا على سلامة الكولوني كلها. Of course, a lot of you linked between adaptation of living organisms' body and their different senses that help them in communication. زي بالظبط adaptation of the antenna inside the ants. For our next lesson, be ready to record all your observations and ideas that will help you write a scientific explanation to the main question. يا ترى ايه main question? How can humans and animals use light, sound, and other ways to receive and transfer information? Thanks my primary 4 students, and see you in our next lesson.